Hey everyone, a warm welcome to every one of you. Welcome to the live session by Manifold AI Learning. So, folks, before we get started with today's agenda, so can I get a quick confirmation whether you're able to hear my voice and see my screen? If you're able to see, please confirm by typing in as yes in the chat window. Okay, thank you, Aviroop. Uh, Perfect. Thank you, guys. Ayush, Victor, Jagdish, Prince. Okay, thank you so much, everyone, for taking your time and joining in with me on this live session. Now, this live session, so we've been doing it. I think it's a third week that we are discussing this topic, and what it is, the reason this is more important, the reason that it's worth it, because one of the challenge that I've seen everywhere is most of the learners are not aware as how do you take up your model that is residing in your notebook environment? It can be your Jupyter Lab or it can be your Google Colab into the production environment. How can we actually do that? Now, when it comes to tools, there are various tools and various frameworks that we have got right now to enable that. So, the agenda of this session and the series of sessions that we are conducting is to make you aware that it's very easy to deploy the machine learning models. You don't have to know about the complex stuff. Yeah, if you know that complex stuff, that's fine. But even if you're a data scientist and irrespective of your knowledge about the other aspects of deployment, you can still deploy to the production environment because that's how easy it is to to productionalize your machine learning model. And it's very important skill set. The reason because the machine learning and the data science and now the generative AI, it's a growing field. Now, the more you get, the more you have the ability to apply what you have learned to the business, the more benefit the business is going to get. And the more business the business is going to get, it's completely correlated to your career growth. So if you have been able to help the businesses with the knowledge that you have on this generative AI and the machine learning and deploying the models to the production environment, help the businesses to do that. So your career growth will go in that same direction, just like the business grows. Because as a person who's working in that industry, if you're working in a company as an employee or as a freelancer, no matter what your goal is, so the the benefit you will be growing or the way in which you would grow, it's completely correlated to the work that you've been doing. So do you agree with me on this, guys? Perfect. So now with that goal in mind, so we have completed the first two sessions on how do we actually productionalize our machine learning models. But I've seen some of you have joined for the first time, but don't worry. The initial few minutes, I'll give you a background of what we have done so far and what is the end goal that we are trying to reach. And then we'll take it from there. So, how many of you have joined for the first time? So, please type in one if you're joining for the first session, or two if you're joining for the second time. So, type in the chat window. Abhiroop, Jagdish, Mani, Ayush, Prince, and Lakshmikant, Samruddhi, Sangeeta, Shruti. Okay, Victor, it's a second session. Okay, perfect. Okay, so thank you so much, guys. Okay, let's do one thing. I'll I'll just give a quick crash course on what we have done in the past session and also take you through the current status of where we are at right now. And then I'll also share you as how we can access the past video recordings for a detailed one. Okay. So what is the idea or what was the thought process over here? See, the thought process of uh, having this hands-on is to create a pipeline. Now, what is a pipeline? A pipeline is basically the sequence of operation that we'll be doing it so that we can achieve the required goal. Now, more importantly, we are making use of the SageMaker pipeline. The reason that we want to create the pipeline because when we think about machine learning, it consists of sequence of interconnected steps. And this will automate the overall process of transforming the raw data into actionable insights or prediction. Now, when we think about some of the key characteristics of pipeline, this is what we would have. So one of the main benefit of having this pipeline is sequential processing, and we'll be able to transform the data, create the automation, create the modularity, as well as the reproducibility. So these are the key characteristics of a pipeline. Now, when we talk about the machine learning project, one of the like the common steps that we have in our machine learning projects or even in the LLMs is we'll get the data from various sources. That would be the data ingestion part, followed by we'll perform the data cleaning and pre-processing, then feature engineering, followed by training, evaluation, deployment, and monitoring. So these are the steps that we would perform in the machine learning projects. Now, the reason that we want to have this pipeline, because here, one, it will increase the efficiency, it will enhance the reproducibility, it will result in scalability, and it will also help us in collaboration as well. Now, in our learning journey, so we'll be making use of the SageMaker, which is one of the service that we have in AWS. And this SageMaker is a fully managed service that we have in AWS for building, automating, and scaling our machine learning workflows. So with this, we will have the seamless integration of various steps of ML process. And it has got some amazing features like in the SageMaker. So we have like this, like here inside the SageMaker, we'll have something called as SageMaker pipeline. And that's what we'll be doing it, using it to build our machine learning pipeline. Now, in order to perform this hands-on, so as I mentioned, some of the prerequisites is we have to launch the SageMaker Studio, create the domain and Amazon SageMaker. Okay, so here in my case, so I've already launched the same. So if you are logging in for the first time, just log into your AWS, go to the domain, and over here, create a new domain. You can select on quick setup and click on the setup. This will take around 5 to 7 minutes for the domain to get set up. And once it's set up, go inside this domain, click on the user profile, click on the launch button and select the option of launching the Jupyter Studio. So this is going to launch the Jupyter Studio. That is like that's actually called as a SageMaker Studio. And from here, you have to launch the Jupyter Lab. Like if you have to click on this Jupyter Lab, and over here, you'll have to create a new Jupyter Lab space, mention the name, whatever that you desire, mention the name. And once it's done, you just have to click on open. Okay, like you have to click on run. And once you click on run, you have to press this open button. This is going to launch the Jupyter Lab environment for us. Now, this is where we'll be doing the hands-on coding. I'm going to load the notebook, which we have written from the previous session. Okay. Now, all the previous sessions recording and the code is made available on our portal. Uh, I'll just go ahead and ping you the link directly. So this is the link where you'll be able to access the previous session recording as well as the source code. Now, for the benefit of the people who have joined here, I would go ahead and attach this file right away in the chat window so that you can directly load it and you can use it right now. With you'll have the latest status of what we have done so far. And then once I complete the session, I'll also share you at the end as well. Okay. So for the folks who have joined through the Zoom meeting link, so I've shared you the file right now with the current status of where we are at. Okay, and I'll also do a quick check if I have done the attachment in my dashboard in this LMS portal. Okay, I'll do one thing. So under the uh, previous, okay, under the session 2, I would just go ahead and update the file. Okay, so okay, I've uploaded the the attachment on the video number 2, you'll be able to access the file over there as well. All right. So let's have a quick review on the code or the progress that we have done so far. So here, the idea is to build the various elements of the pipeline. So what we have is, I'll just run all the cells. Okay. So the idea is we are going to build our pipeline, and our pipeline will have these components. We'll have a pre-processing component. Now this pre-processing component is what we would use it to pre-process the data and make the data ready. Then we have a training component. So this will accept the prepared data and it would go ahead and perform the training. Then we have an evaluation component. Now this evaluation component or part of this pipeline is to generate the evaluation or perform the evaluation. Then I'll add one more step that's called as a condition evaluation. Now this is just to show you as how we can add the additional condition. So this is about the condition evaluation. And finally, we will have a model registration component. Now in this model registration, we'll make use of the SageMaker model registry and we'll register the model over here. So these are the various aspects that we are going to create in our pipeline. Now, once we create the pipeline, like once we complete it, once we uh, do it, okay, hopefully we'll be able to complete it in today's session. Now, once we are able to do it, we'll be able to view the same in our SageMaker Studio under the pipeline. Now, for this pipeline to work in an efficient manner, so we'll normally start by defining the parameters, and that's what we did right here in our initial session. Like we have loaded the data set. Okay, so we have loaded the data set. One of the data set that we will be using today is the abalone data. So that's the data that we'll be using. So we will download the data set. And once we download the data set, so we started by defining the parameters. So think of the parameters as a variable. So every time that you want to initialize the pipeline, you will have an opportunity to change these parameter values so that you can run the various pipeline, like you can run the same pipeline with different configuration. Now for the demonstration purpose, I have created 4 different parameters. Like one is processing instance count. That means how many instances that I want to use it for performing the pre-processing, and status of the model, that is whether it's approved or not, and where exactly is that input data and the batch data. So these are all the 4 parameters that I've created. Now, once that is done, so we have loaded the data set. So this is how our given data set would look like. And we are dealing with the task of regression. The rings column refers to the numerical value, and that is our target column. So this is basically the regression task. Now, here in this case, once we have seen, so what we did in the last session is we have looked into the various strategy as how we are going to perform the pre-processing. Now, once that is done, so we went ahead and created the Python file as well. So I remember we created a new Python file with everything that's present right here. I'll do one thing. Okay, let me just get that Python file and I'll include this code right here. Okay. All right. Now, in the meantime, while I'm doing it, so I just want to have a quick check-in with you. So is everyone with me so far? If you're with me so far, please type in by typing as yes in the chat window if you're with me so far. Okay, Jagdish, Victor, perfect. Okay, Prince, Samyukta, Sangeeta, okay, Darshini, Mani, excellent team. All right. Just 1 second, team. I'm trying to get the same. Okay, so found the file. This is the file that we have created last time, which is the preprocessing.py file. All right, I'm just checking a few more things here. So this is our processing pipeline. Okay, so what we did is, so we have created the file which is called as preprocessing.py file. And if I go inside this preprocessing.py file, this basically is going to load the data and perform the pre-processing that uh, we require to do. So that's the basic idea right here. Okay, we have like we have create like this is a Python script that will be used for pre-processing, where we'll load the data set, will perform the pre-processing, and we have separated our features and target. And this is going to take care of pre-processing, where this will use the base direct. This is a base directory variable that we have created. This will read the data from this base directory, that CSV file, and apply the transformation where we are applying the simple imputer, standard scalar, and we have applied the transformers on the categorical data. And once that is done, like finally we'll perform the fit and transform. We would split the data set into three parts. Okay. One is training part, the other one is validation part, and the last one is test part. So we are going to generate three outputs as a result of performing this pre-processing. Okay. So that's the overall idea of working right here, team. So this would go ahead and like if I want to take you through at a very high level. So after we have done the pre-processing, we started by creating the step. The first step is the uh, like the pre-processing step. Okay. So here in this example, so we started by creating the sklearn processor. This is the instance that I'll be using for performing the pre-processing. Now, once that is done, we have created the preprocessor arguments by calling as sklearn processor.run. And we have mentioned the input. The input is basically my input data. I'm placing it inside this destination. Then my output that I'm getting, I would be getting it to these respective sources that we have got right here. Okay, so that's the overall idea here, team. Now, once that is done, okay, so we went ahead and defined our estimator. Now, for this demonstration purpose, I'm going to make use of the XGBoost. So that's the XGBoost is the algorithm that I'll be using. Now, here in this case, so for this XGBoost, I would go ahead and load few more things as well. Okay. Okay, so here in this case, I have created the estimator, and after that, I have set the hyperparameter for this XGBoost algorithm. Then we went ahead and created the training argument. So the process is in this way, guys. So when we want to define the pipeline, so we'll call it as like for each and every object or step that will be run, we'll be calling it as like let's say that particular process dot args will get the arguments. And here we will go ahead and mention the step as if we are going to execute it, but it's not going to be done because it will be executed only with the pipeline. Now, if you take a look at it, I have defined my algorithm. Like what exactly is this algorithm that we'll be using right here in this case? Okay. Now, once I've defined the algorithm, I've mentioned dot fit. Okay. Even though I've mentioned dot fit, I'm calling it as train arguments. Like this is like getting the arguments. So that's what it's going to do in the backend. Okay. It's going to get the arguments in the backend team. And then in the same way, so we have created the training step. So what we have done is we have created two things. One is a training step. The other one is the pre-processing step. So these are the two steps that we have done so far in this scenario. So we have defined it. We have defined our pre-processing, and then we have defined our training. So these are the two things that we have done. Now, once this is done, okay, the next thing that we are going to do is we would go ahead and you create a script for evaluation. Now, as an outcome of training, okay, as an outcome of this training, we will be getting a model. Okay, we will be getting a model as an outcome of this training. So we will use the model, like the file that we have got. We will use that model, and then we would go ahead and evaluate some metrics. Now, since we are dealing with the task of regression, so what are the metrics can we use it here? So what metrics can we actually use it to evaluate it? That's correct. So I can make use of mean absolute error, mean squared error. So these are the metrics that I can actually use it so that we can perform the evaluation. Now here in this case, to make the efficient of our time, so I'll make use of the already created code with me and I'll walk you through with the code. And this will help us to proceed further in a much faster pace. Okay, so here in this case, I'm creating a file that's called as evaluation.py file. Now, this is a file that we'll be using it for the evaluation purpose. Okay, now here to start with, I'm going to import JSON, I'll import the pathlib, I'll import the pickle, I'll import the tar file, joblib, numpy, pandas. So these are the various libraries that I'll be loading. Okay, now once I load these libraries, I'm also going to load the function that's called as the mean squared error. Okay, so I'm going to load it, which is basically the mean squared error. Now, this is what we'll be using as a linear regression metric. Okay, so here the code is very simple. So we have mentioned that if name is equal to main. Now, this is a special thing that we generally mention to run a particular part of code when we use this Python file. Okay, so this is the model file. This is where the model will be present. That's the model path. And I'll go ahead and extract this model file. Then we will load this file using the pickle library. Okay, then we will load the test file. Now, once we load this test file, we would go ahead and perform the metric. Okay, I'll go ahead and generate the prediction using the test. Then we will go ahead and uh, get the value of error, like whatever the predictions that we are generating and our test data. So we will compare it and find the metric, in this case, the mean squared error. Then along with that, I'm also going to measure the standard deviation as well. And whatever the output that I'll be writing, my output directory, I'm going to call it as opt.ml pre-processing evaluation. And this is where I would go ahead and uh, like specify my evaluation path, and I'm going to write it as a JSON file. Okay. Now, the interesting question is like, why are we going over here at this place? Like, how come we are confident that the model will be present right here? Well, that's the property. Okay. That's the property of working with the SageMaker. Now, in this SageMaker, if you take a look into this estimator, so whenever we make use of estimator, they have given a very good visualization in their page. Let's see if we can get that. So this is the official documentation page. Let's see if we have an example. Okay. This is the documentation page. Let's see if that is visible. So in our case, we are currently uh, somewhere on the training. So I think they have done some changes, but let's take a look at it. We should be able to find it. All right. So I'm unable to find it here. That's fine. So let me just tell you. So whenever a model has been trained, okay, whenever a model has been trained, the trained model will be present over here in this location. Okay, whenever a model is trained, we'll be able to see it in the logs. Generally, we will be able to see it in the logs when we perform this training uh, in the front end. Okay, like we'll be able to see the logs, but this is where the the model train model file will be present. Like once the training is completed in that environment. So this is where the file is present, and we are using the same model file. Okay, we are using the same model file, and we'll be performing the prediction. So that's what we'll be doing. I think it will become clear when you look into the further part of the code. Let me just tell you as how exactly are we doing it right here. So this is going to perform the training. Okay, now we have defined the training step. Now what I'll do is in I'll go ahead and add the another step for our pipeline, which is basically the evaluation step. Now, while performing the evaluation, I'll make use of this evaluation.py file, and I'll perform the evaluation of the same. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Now, the way that I'll be performing the evaluation and the code is something like this. I'll write as from sagemaker.processing, I would import the script processor. Okay, I'll import the script processor. Now I'll mention as my script eval is equal to script processor. This is the class that I'll be using. And here for the script processor, we can actually specify what is the image that I want to use. Okay, and what's the command that we want to run, and the batch name that we want to set, and the session name. So this is very much similar to how we have defined earlier as well. Like this is the same image URI that I'll be using the same XGBoost model, which I'll be using right now. And like if you remember last time we have made use of sklearn processor, we can actually make use of sklearn processor. And this time I'm making use of the generic one, which is directly the script processor. So we'll call the same, we'll specify the framework, right? We'll have to do the same thing over here too. So I would say script processor. Now the important thing is the image. Image URI is equal to image URI. Okay, and the command that I want to run right here. Okay, it's Python 3 command. Okay, then I can mention my base job name. I'll say script eval. Okay, that's the base job name that I want to use it. Okay, and then what I want to specify is the instance type. Let's say instance count. Okay, I can say instance count as 1 and instance type. For the instance type, I'll make use of ml.m5.xlarge. Now, for some reason, if you get an error when you're running the pipeline saying that the resource is not enabled, so you need to request for that resource. Okay, if in case if you get the error, I'll show you. So apart from that, I'll have to specify the execution role. And then I'll go ahead and specify the session. So for SageMaker session, I'll specify the pipeline session that we have mentioned earlier. So this would go ahead and create the object for script evaluator. Now I'll say eval args is equal to, I'll directly mention as run. Okay, script eval dot run, but this time I'll specify what will be the input. My input is basically for in order to run the evaluation. Okay, so this is basically my processing input, and this processing input where the source is basically my previous training. I'll say step train. Let's take a look into the training step. Yeah, this is my training step. So from this step of training, okay, I'll access the properties. And from here, I'm going to get the model artifacts dot S3 model artifacts. Okay. And what is the destination? So whatever the model, like whatever the S3 file that is getting, whatever the model file that has been pushed into this S3 bucket, I'm actually trying to access that S3 file right here, like the tar.gz file, and I'm going to paste it in this destination. What is the destination? It's the destination where I want to actually access it. So I'll give the clarity very soon. Okay, just be with me. So then I'll explain the overall what is happening in the backend. Okay, now once I mention this processing input, okay, like this is my first input. The other input that I want to specify is my output. I'll say processing input. Okay, and here, if I want to run the evaluation, two things that I want to provide. One is the model itself. Okay, the model I have provided right now from my training step. Okay, then I also have to provide the data for which it has to perform the evaluation, right? So where exactly am I getting that file? So I'm actually getting that file from my pre-processing job. Like if you remember from the pre-processing, we are generating the test.csv. So we are actually generating this test.csv, and I'm going to provide that test.csv file right here. So this time I want to I'll be specifying the source and destination in this manner. I've copy pasted it, but I'll modify a few things. Okay. This is my step process dot properties dot. Okay. This is not a model artifact because it's actually the processing that we have done. So I'm going to say processing output config dot outputs. It's not an S3 model artifacts. It's basically the outputs that we have got. And I'm interested in the output of test. And I'll say my S3 output, I'll be getting the basically the present where exactly the S3, where exactly it is present in my S3 bucket. I'll say dot S3 output dot S3 URI. Okay. And I'll be placing this in opt.ml processing slash test. So this is how I would specify my inputs. Okay, so why have I placed it in these two locations? Well, if you take a look at it, my script evaluation.py is expecting the same. It is expecting the model in this location, like opt.ml processing model, and it is expecting the test.csv file in this opt.ml processing test. And because of this reason, whatever the output that I have got from the previous step, which is present inside my S3 bucket, I'm going to link it in this job right here that I'm going to create, that is for the step. Then I would go ahead and mention the output. This is basically where exactly that I want to save the output. So I'm going to say processing output. And I'll specify my output name. So I'll say evaluation. That's the name that I'm going to provide. And where exactly that I'm going to save these files inside my pre-processing job step. Well, it is basically I'm saving it inside this location, optimal pre-processing evaluation. I'll mention the source right here. Okay, now once this is done, then I'll also mention my code. So what is the code? The code that I want to use it to perform this evaluation is evaluation.py file. So this is a file that I want to use it for my evaluation purpose. So this will go ahead and configure my evaluation step. So let me recap this again because this step is important. Here in this case, first of all, what I have done is I've created this evaluation.py file. Now this is the file where it will load a model from a specific path. It will load it using the pickle, and then it will load a data set from this particular location inside that instance. And then it will generate the prediction and dump the metrics in a JSON file. That's what this evaluation.py file is going to do with this. Now for this step of evaluation, so what are the inputs it is expecting? It is expecting two things. So one is the model, especially the trained model. And then the other one is what we call it as the test data. So whatever the trained model that I'm getting it from the training step. So like when the training happens, we have configured such that it will be saving the model into the S3 bucket. So I'm going to mention this training steps S3 bucket location. Okay, I'm going to set this S3 bucket location over here for the model. In the same way, in the pre-processing, we have the file that is a CSV file, and this is present inside this S3 bucket. So I'm going to mention the same for the step about how it can actually load the data. Now that's how I have configured in this evaluation step. And that is what we have created inside this input output parameters for this script evaluation.run. Okay, so that's what we have done right here. Now, once this is done, okay, this will take care of the evaluation step. Next, since we are going to work with the file, okay, so I would go ahead and create an object of this property file, and I'll specify what exactly is the path, and I'll define my processing step. So I'm going to say from SageMaker dot workflow dot properties. Okay, I'm going to import this property file. Okay, and here I'll say my evaluation report is equal to, it's basically the property file that we are getting. And I'll mention the names right here. I'll mention the name as evaluation report. Output name is equal to evaluation. Okay, the path I'll directly mention as evaluation dot JSON. This is the path that I would specify. Okay, now once I mention this time I'm going to create the evaluation step. I'll say step eval is equal to processing step. Okay, so I'm going to define it as a processing step. I'll mention the name. I'll mention as abalone eval. That's the name that I would mention. Now, what are the arguments? I'll say step underscore arguments is equal to eval underscore arguments that I have created. And what are the properties files that we are going to get? So property files is equal to my evaluation report. So this is how I would configure my evaluation step. Now, once the evaluation is done, so what is the next step? The next step is I want to create the model. So this time I'll mention the create model in this manner. So I'm going to say as from sagemaker.model, I'll import the model. Then I'll create my model as the model instance. the image URI is equal to image URI. And this is the S3 model artifacts that we have got, like whatever the S3 model artifact that we have got from my training step. I'll use that and I'll be creating the model instance for this pipeline session that we have got. Okay, this will be my model instance. Then I'll also go ahead and create an object for the create model input. So from sagemaker.inputs, I'll import this create model input and I'll create an object for inputs. Then finally, I would go ahead and create a step using the SageMaker workflow as create model step, where I'll make use of the model, where I'll make use of the uh, like the type of instance that I want to specify for this model. I'll mention all these details and I'll create that model step. So I'll say from sagemaker.workflow.steps, I would import create model step. This is the create model step that I will be creating. I'll say step create model is equal to create model step. And here, the name that I want to create. So I'll say create model. That's the name that I want to mention. For the model, I'll mention the model instance that we have created earlier. Okay. And then the another one is the inputs. I'll say inputs is equal to inputs that we have mentioned above. So this is going to define my create model step. Okay. Now, two more things that I'll be adding. So one is for batch transformer. Okay. And we need to create it as a transforming step. Okay, I'll just go ahead and mention it. So it follows the same thing that we have done last time, but instead it's a batch transformation. So in order to describe my transformer, so from SageMaker or transformer, I'll import the transformer, will specify the model name, the instance type, and where exactly is the output path that I want to use it. So this would be my batch transform. And then I'm going to create my transform step. So this would be my transform step. Like I'll say step transform, mention this transform step, mention my transformers that we have got. Okay, so this is what I would be creating. Next, we are going to understand the metric that we are generating. Okay, we'll make use of the metric that we are generating. And then using that metric, we will go ahead and do some evaluation. Okay, we'll perform some kind of evaluation. That means when I say evaluation, we will check the value that we are getting from the evaluation step as whether it is greater than or less than a certain threshold value. Now, here in this case, we are making use of the loss function that is mean squared error. So if I'm making use of this mean squared error, which one do you think is a better one? Is having a high mean squared error is better, or is having a low mean squared error is it better? So which one do you think will be a better for our model? Exactly correct. So it's a lower. So having the lower value will be a much better model that we'll be looking at. So here in this case, we can write a condition step to say as, okay, if that condition is true, then only go ahead and perform the same. Okay, so we can actually include it as a condition step. So before we actually do it, okay, I'll share you the code as how we could actually achieve it. Now here in this case, from sagemaker.model metrics, I'm importing our the metric source and the model metrics. And I'm also importing the step that's called as a register model step. Okay, this is what I'm doing right here. So I'm going to load my model metrics from my evaluation.json file. Okay, and this is a step which will perform the activity of model registration into the SageMaker. that is on the SageMaker model registry. So here I've mentioned the step as my register model. We have mentioned the model name, the estimator, like what exactly is the model instance that I want to use it. Then the model data. So what exactly is the data that I want to use it for my model? Then apart from that, what is the content type and the response type that I have? And what are the inference instances? So the reason that I'm mentioning all these details because these are all something that we have to specify even when we are creating in the front end. This is like mentioning some of the important properties of the model that we are registering to the SageMaker model registry. So we are saying this as this model accepts the content type of text CSV file, and the response is also similar. And this model can be trained only on the instance ml.m5 xlarge. That means if I want to use this model and perform the training, okay, then in such scenario, this training or the transformation cannot be done only, sorry, in this case, like let's say if I want to use this trained model and perform the prediction, then in such scenario, it can only be possible in this m5.x large, like the transformation. And if I'm running any inferences, it can only be done on ml.m5x large or ml.t2.medium. So only these are the ones, okay? Only these are the inference instances that are actually supported, okay? So that these are the properties that we would set. Now, once we mention these, okay? So once we mention this, so then like using these details, we can actually go ahead and deploy the model. Now, this is one of the important step. Like this is like defining the properties of the model that we are trying to register. Okay, so this will take care of the registration step. All right, so let's see. Okay, we are getting an error saying that the file not found. Okay, this is because I have not executed the above cell. Okay, now let me rerun this again. Yeah, now we don't have any issues. That's great. So we have now defined our the model registration step. Now, apart from that, I'm going to define the condition step. So observe closely, it's very important and it's very easy to specify. Now I'll show you a very simple example. Now you can extend the similar concept depending on your application. So here I'm going to import the condition of less than or equal to because the lower is the better. So hence I'm going to have that's as a condition less than or equal to. Then I'll import the condition step and JSON get. So here on the left hand side, I'll get the mean squared error value. On the right hand side, I'm going to check as 6. Like this is a constant value that I'm mentioning. Now, if you want to decrease, you can further decrease as well. Demonstration purpose, I'm saying it as on the right hand side of this less than or equal to, I want to have 6. Okay. So that means I'm going to check the model's MSC. I'm going to check the model MSC less than or equal to, okay, the 6. So this is the condition that I'm evaluating right here. This is the condition LTE. Then I'll go ahead and add this condition step. Now, important thing here is if this condition is valid, okay, if this condition is valid, if this condition is true, then perform the model registration. That is step registration, create the model and step transform. Else do not do it. That is else step is blank. Okay, so that means only if this condition is matching, then only I'll be going ahead and performing this step. Now, final thing what we need to do, once we have defined the individual step, we can then go ahead and create the pipeline. Now, in order to create the pipeline, we can directly import the pipeline from SageMaker workflow.pipeline. So I'll say from SageMaker dot workflow dot pipeline. I would go ahead and import the pipeline. Then I'll say pipeline name is equal to, I'll mention my abalone pipeline. That's the pipeline name that I'm going to mention. Now I'll create an object for pipeline. I'll say pipeline is equal to pipeline object. Then I'll specify the name. This is my pipeline name. And for the parameters, so here I'll define all the parameters that we have defined at the start of this notebook, which is basically processing instance count and model approval status. Then your input data location and batch data. Okay, this is what I would specify. Then, okay, we'll define the steps. So the steps that I want to have is first is process step, step process, step train, then step eval, then after that, step condition. So these are the 4 steps that I would be specifying right here. Now this will create the pipeline. Now we can check the overall definition in the JSON file format. So I can say import JSON. Okay, I'll say import JSON, and let's say JSON.loads, and we can look into the pipeline definition. I'll say pipeline.definition. So this would go ahead and load the pipeline definition that we have got. Okay, this is the pipeline definition of what we have created so far. Okay, now once this is done, if we want to use this pipeline and make it available inside the SageMaker Studio, one of the important things, see, I'm in this pipeline, and right now, even if I refresh it, nothing is visible. Okay, let me just clear the screen. Now, if I want to see that pipeline, I'll just have to make use of the function of upsert. So pipeline dot upsert. Okay, we'll have to mention our role ARN, that is our execution role. And once we mention this, this pipeline will now be available for us in the SageMaker Studio. See, we have the abalone pipeline. Now, everything will make sense if I open this. If I open this pipeline, okay, currently there's no execution. If I click on graph, so this is how the graph would look like. The first step is pre-processing, followed by training, followed by evaluation, followed by checking the condition. Based on this condition, we have the steps defined, like create the model, register the model, and perform the transformation. And if I click on the parameters, these are the parameters that we have defined in the initial part of the notebook. That is how many number of processing instances that I want, the status of model approval, the input data, and the batch data. Okay, these are the things that I would specify. Now, I can go ahead and execute this pipeline. I can click on this execute button, and I can mention the execution name. Like, for example, I'll say demo execution. Description, I'll say this is the demo execution live. And I can mention the processing instance and everything. I'll click on this execute button. So this would go ahead and start the execution of this pipeline. Okay, this would start the execution of our pipeline right now. So if I refresh it, see, now it is executing. Let's take a look into the step. Currently, we are under this processing step. Like currently it says processing data. Now, while performing this activity, if we come across any error, we can view it. Now, the expectation is, so once the processing has started, under this SageMaker, if I go over here under this processing, under the processing job, we should be able to see the processing job status. Like it will take few minutes. Okay, so you can see that there's a processing job that has initiated a few seconds ago. Okay, it has been initiated in today's state. This is the pipeline processor, and what is the status? Currently, it is in progress. You can look into the details of this processing job. So for this processing job, it is making use of this preprocess.py file. That's the entry point. And if I come right here, what is the location of the file? It's basically loading from the local path of optml processing input from my SageMaker, from this S3 bucket. Like in the initial part, we have saved our model in this S3 bucket. If I go inside this S3 bucket, go under the default S3 bucket, which is AWS MLOps Live. And over here, this is the file that we are using, that is abalone dataset.csv. So we are using that file. And then as an output, I'm going to create three files like train.csv. So I'll be creating a folder called processing, output, train, and maybe somewhere like this, I'll be going ahead and saving the model files. Okay, we can check right here. So I would come back. I'm calling it as abalone pipeline. Now under this abalone pipeline, under this values, reprocessing, output, so we should be able to see, okay, I think it looks like it has been completed. So we have validation.csv present, we have train.csv present, that test.csv file is present right here. So this is done as an outcome of this pre-processing step. Okay, now let's check the status over here. Currently it is completed. See, we were able to see the file and now the status have been changed to completed. Now, once the pre-processing is done, what is it that we would expect? We would expect the model training to start. So if I come over here and expand the training and click on this training jobs, see that training is in progress right here. Okay, the training is in progress. So currently it says the status is in training. Now it will update it for us. It will tell us what is it that we are going to do. And the important thing, okay, so let me come back right here. Okay, so important thing here is, let me show you here in this itself. This is the algorithm. Okay, that is the XGBoost algorithm. Let's check the output if we have any. See, my output data is basically, it will be saved inside this abalone train. That means inside this abalone train, it will save my model file in this star.gz format. That's what the output of this training step would look like. So let's have a quick check over here under this training jobs. So last time, I think, yeah, it took around 2 minutes. So it's not much of a big deal. So let's wait. So within 2 minutes, we should be able to see this training step to be completed. Currently, it is downloading the model from the URI, and then we should be able to see the quick progress when it comes to training. Now, once the training is done, we would be performing the evaluation, where it will load the model and it will perform the evaluation as well. All right. So now it says uploading. Okay. So let's check. Yeah, now the training job has been completed. That's amazing. Let's take a look into this training job right here. If you take a look into this output right now, it says under this S3 location, we should be able to see the file. Let's check. Under this S3 bucket, abalone train, pipelines, training step. And we see under the output, we have model.tar.gset. So this is basically our trained model file. Now, this is the file, which is what we'll be using in the next step of our pipeline, which is basically the evaluation step. Now, this evaluation step, we have configured as a processing job. Now, let's check. Now, the evaluation is in progress. So let's do a quick check on this evaluation. Now, in this evaluation, it is loading the model from my S3 bucket, which is the output from my training job. Okay. And along with that, it is also using the input to is basically the test.csv file, which we got from the pre-processing step. So using the model and the test.csv file, we are performing the evaluation using the evaluation.py file. Okay, that's what is being done right now. And let's see how much time it would take. So last time when we ran the evaluation, I think, yeah, it took somewhere around 2 minutes. Okay, so we should be able to see it around 2 minutes itself, even this time too. Now, once the evaluation is done, so what we would expect right here is, so we will come over here and check the condition. We will check the condition and try to understand whether the condition is completed or not, like whether the condition is satisfied. Once the condition is satisfied, we will be able to see our model under this model. Like if you go inside this model, we have our model right here, and we should be able to see the model right here. It looks like the model has been created. Right now it says end package. I think it got created from our code, and it was just created just 11 minutes ago. And the status is pending manual approval. That means we are able to save the model inside our SageMaker model registry. Okay, we are able to save our model inside the SageMaker model registry. So that's an amazing thing. See, the evaluation was done. I think since the evaluation was done, it moved on and it checked the pipeline. Let's look into the evaluation. See, like here, if you take a look at it, the condition was satisfied. Okay, the condition was actually satisfied in this case. Okay, so it says the outcome says as true. My step name, the outcome is true. So as a result of this, it has registered the model. Okay, it has performed the registration of the model and it has created the model right here. Now, once that is done, we went ahead and we have performed the transformation. So as like it has performed everything in a sequential manner, guys. It has performed everything in a sequential manner, starting from pre-processing till the model registration to the SageMaker model registry, as well as performing the transformation. Now, what I can do is I can make use of these SageMaker projects, and using the SageMaker projects, we can automate the deployment aspect. Okay, so that's what we'll be doing it in our next session, which would be the final part of this overall hands-on, where we'll make use of the SageMaker project. We will make use of the ability of automating the model building and deployment. So we would make use of the deployment part. Like since we have built the model right here, so using one of the model that we have right here, we will see how we can deploy it in an instance. Okay, so that's what we'll be doing. And finally, what we can test is if I push any new model, we should be able to see that with the help of the SageMaker projects, the new version of the model will actually be deployed on the required instance. Now, it will make use of a lot of other aspects of the cloud, like it will make use of cloud formation to bring up the resources. It will automatically create the continuous deployment pipeline, and we'll be looking into those amazing stuff in our next session, guys. So that is what we'll be doing it. Okay, so how many of you have felt that, okay, this session is a worth spent, like worth time spent? I mean, you have joined with me, I think, and you have stayed with me till now. So is this worth it? Is the session is worth it for you guys? Thank you, Victor. Thank you, Prince. Thank you, Rajiv. Thank you, Samyukta. Thank you, Shashi. Thank you, Shruti. Thank you, Abhiroop. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, guys. And first of all, I want to thank you as well for your support and staying with me so far. Now, what I'll be doing is, I think since the code is working fine, now I'll attach this file into our repository right away so that you'll be able to access it. Okay, so I'll attach both the pre-processing as well as the notebook file as well. I'll attach it on the third video. All right. So yeah, I've attached it over here as well, team. Okay. So like once you download it, just ensure that you are naming it correctly so that you can load it without any issues. Now, once the session is completed, so the team will be uploading today's recording as well in this same LMS so that you can access it at a later point. Now, if you have liked my way of presenting these topics, so I highly recommend you to check out the Manifold AI Learning courses. So there are some amazing courses that we have at Manifold AI Learning. So let me just share you the link. So these are some of the courses that I've had an opportunity to create with Manifold AI Learning. So one thing that I would definitely recommend is Mastering Generative AI in 2024. So this is one of the uh, like I'll call it as a silver membership that we have at Manifold AI Learning. So we'll be launching more community soon. The prices is about to increase very soon. So if you're someone who's thinking to enroll and start your learning journey, okay, so I highly recommend you to check out this Mastering the Generative AI package. This will be actually upgraded to silver membership, where you'll be getting the courses at Manifold AI Learning, and not just that, we are also coming up with a way to engage within the community, and we're also coming up with a way to provide more value to include all the courses at Manifold AI Learning at a single place, and to to have a better learning environment for you so that you can progress in your artificial intelligence and the data science career. I'm so excited for the community that is coming up. The team is working in the back end, and for the folks who are already part of this Mastering Generative AI, you will be automatically upgraded to the silver membership at Manifold AI Learning. And for those of you who are not yet, so I highly recommend you to check out the same. This is the price, I think, in India, and you'll be like, depending on the location, if you're checking out at the other location, you will be able to see the pricing in US dollars too. Okay. It's completely worth it because you will get the courses at Manifold AI Learning, which includes more than 17 plus courses that we have at Manifold AI Learning. And as I mentioned, so you will be upgraded to the silver membership, where you will get the community support, and you will have an opportunity to interact with others and progress in your learning journey. Okay, so thank you so much again, everyone. Now, I recommend only for the serious learners who wants to take your learning journey to the next level. If you are able to commit your time and money, then only go ahead and take it. Else, you're always welcome to our uh, webinars that we'll be conducting. And you also, I request you to please stay in touch with the YouTube and LinkedIn so that you can be with us and learn from us. So it was pleasure hosting each and every one of you guys. And thank you so much for the folks who have joined in through the social media platforms as well. And I hope to see you next time. I'll be here on call in case if anyone has any questions. So if you're clear, so please confirm by typing in as all good, and more power to you guys. I'll see you next time. Thank you, Jagdish. Thank you, Ramya. Okay. Sangeeta says, can I enroll now? Yeah, sure. Definitely, Sangeeta. Yeah. All right. Now, if anyone has any questions, do let me know. I'll be here on call for a few more minutes. In case if anyone is registering, do let me know. All right. Yeah, that's okay, na, Anand. Okay. Okay. Thank you so much again, guys. I'll be here. Sure, Anand. I'll be here. No worries. Okay, there's a question from Abhirup. Abhirup says that what's the difference between Jupyter Lab and Jupyter Studio? Okay, this is the SageMaker Studio, just to add. Okay, so this SageMaker Studio is what we have, and Jupyter Lab is a coding environment. I can say Jupyter Lab is one of the component inside the SageMaker Studio, where apart from this application of this Jupyter Lab, we have the other components as well. Like we have looked into it. There's a pipeline, there's a model, there's a jumpstart, there's a deployment. So these are all the various components that we have inside the SageMaker Studio. Okay. And then the other question is difference between Jupyter Lab and yeah, I think this is SageMaker Studio. I can say this is a SageMaker Studio only, and this is this Jupyter Lab, I would say. This is actually a Jupyter Lab hosted inside the SageMaker. Okay, I see Pushpa has enrolled into the Manifold AI Learning Silver membership. That's the generative AI package right now. So Pushpa, congratulations and welcome to the Manifold AI Learning community. We are so excited to have you, Pushpa. Okay, Anand, congratulations, Anand. Yes, your payment has been completed, and I welcome you for this Manifold AI Learning community. Congratulations, Sudha. Yes, welcome to you too. All right, guys. So I'll be closing the call. In case if anyone has any other questions, do let me know. Sure, Lakshmi. Yeah, you can feel free to check out the other. We also have a course as well on LLM ML Ops with AWS. Like if you're someone who just wants to get started with ML Ops, you're not ready, you can feel free to check out the course. Like I'll say this is like the courses at Manifold AI Learning are, I'll say it will provide you huge value if you just follow along with the learning path that is described over there. Just check out this course that is ML Ops with AWS. You're sorted with your ML Ops journey. I'm just sharing for everyone in the social media channels too. Okay, thank you so much again, everyone, and thank you for the time. And like for those of you who have not joined to the Manifold AI Learning community, just go ahead and sign up. So by signing up on the manifoldailearning.in website, you can just enroll to any of the free courses that we have got, and you can access the free learning resources as well. So once you are part of the community, you'll be able to receive the next session update as well as the session course recording. You'll be able to access it in a single place. Okay, I wish you all the very best for your learning journey, and I'll see you next time, everyone. Take care.